The Rosemary restaurant was rightfully considered one of the best in the city. Crystal glasses sparkled in the chandelier light, and impeccably set tables with snow-white tablecloths spoke of the owner's refined taste and high status. But today this luxurious atmosphere only irritated Mr. Gallagher, heightening his paternal discontent. Across from him sat his only daughter, Stephanie, whose entire demeanour showed she couldn't understand why her father had kept her here for 2 hours. In business circles, Mr. Gallagher was known as a man with an iron grip who had built his business from nothing. He had achieved everything through his own efforts, working day and night, and desperately wanted his daughter to continue his legacy. But Stephanie, rather than helping her father, spent his money on trinkets and frivolous entertainment. Her life was an endless party without purpose or meaning. "Stephanie," Mr. Gallagher began, "tell me something. We've been sitting here all this time, and not once have you asked how the restaurant is doing." The girl set down her fork, giving her father a look of pure, childish resentment. "Dad, why do you always talk about work? I want to enjoy life. Isn't that what we live for? Especially since I'm your only daughter and heir to all this." "Heir?" Mr. Gallagher scoffed. "What makes you think I'm leaving anything? Don't count on it. You appreciate neither my work nor what I give you. I've spoiled you too much, and now you must pay for my kindness." "But it's not my fault," Stephanie protested. "I am who I am. I like beautiful things, expensive cars and travelling. Is it wrong to have good taste?" "No, daughter, it's not wrong. What's unfortunate is that these superficial things are all that fill your life. You see nothing beyond your own whims. How many traffic accidents have you been in over the last 6 months? 3? 4? Think about that. You've sunk 2 motorcycles in the river, just for some photos. And I've lost count of how many times I've paid for car repairs. You go through vehicles like disposable gloves. Bridget and I stopped tracking the damages long ago." Her father's words struck Stephanie deeply. She knew he was right, but admitting it felt humiliating. "I want you to get married," her father declared firmly. Stephanie gasped. "Marry? Dad, what are you thinking? I'm only 22. I'm not ready. I want to live for myself, at least for a while." "Your wishes don't concern me," Dad cut in. "You need a husband who will teach you responsibility and help you appreciate what you have." "And who's the lucky man?" his daughter asked sarcastically. "I haven't decided yet. The important thing is finding a suitable candidate," Mr. Gallagher replied. "It doesn't matter who he is. It could even be the next person to walk through that door. What matters is that you stop behaving like a spoiled child, and be warned, if you refuse, all your bank cards will be blocked right away." At that moment, a young man entered the restaurant. He wore torn jeans and a shabby shirt of indeterminate colour. An old backpack hung from his shoulders. He looked like a vagrant, missing only a beard. Searching for the receptionist, the stranger asked the doorman quietly, "Is the position for a cleaner or kitchen worker still available?" Seeing him, Mr. Gallagher felt mixed emotions. "It seems we have our first candidate," he said with a smile, looking at Stephanie. "The young man is clearly looking for work, or perhaps something else. What do you think, daughter?" Stephanie was stunned. She realised her father was using this vagrant as leverage to force her onto his chosen path. "Dad," she whispered finally, "why are you doing this to me?" But her father appeared not to hear. "Young man," he addressed the visitor, "did you need something? I'm the owner of this establishment, and this is my daughter Stephanie." My name is Dave. I'm looking for any work. At this moment, the father noted with satisfaction that Stephanie was regarding Dave with unconcealed contempt. Just what I need, he thought with a smile, while Dave looked around the restaurant hall with genuine interest. You say you need money? The businessman kept speaking with the stranger. Well, it's a normal desire. I've always respected men of character. Here's what we'll do. Starting tomorrow, you'll work in the kitchen as an assistant to my chef, Gregory. Once you get used to the routine, I'll promote you to waiter. Joy flashed in Dave's eyes. Thank you. I won't let you down. You can be sure of that. Mr. Gallagher grinned. We'll see about that. And mind you, I have big plans for you. I won't say anything in advance, but if you show ingenuity and diligence, you'll never sleep on the streets again. At these words, Stephanie couldn't take it any more. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the restaurant, slamming the door. She was walking down the street, oblivious to her surroundings. Taking her cell phone from her purse, she called her friend to share what had happened. Can you imagine what my father's planning? He wants to marry me off. Really? To whom? Stephanie bit her lip painfully, catching the mockery in her friend's voice. You won't believe it. To a newcomer, a homeless man who's going to work in our restaurant kitchen. Does he know about it? Her friend persisted. Bella, you're so naive. Of course he knows. Father must have stayed to speak with him, and I just couldn't stand it any more, so I left. Stephanie said, offended. There was silence on the line for a moment before Bella spoke. Well, if you want my opinion, it's not so strange. Your father has a lot of money. He'll make a prince out of any beggar. As for him being homeless, that's no problem. Just dress him up, fix his hair, and there's your suitor. Stephanie tried to laugh off her friend's words, but the uncomfortable truth stung her heart. After a polite goodbye, she called a taxi and headed home. Meanwhile, different events were unfolding in the restaurant kitchen. Dave tentatively pushed open the door and stepped into this five-star establishment's inner sanctum. A wave of noise, clamour, and clattering pots washed over him. The air was rich with the smell of fried onions, garlic, and something sweetly delicate that instantly made his mouth water. Hey, what are you doing there? A harsh voice made him flinch. Dave turned left and stumbled backward. Before him stood a man of impressive size, arms crossed over his chest. A white chef's hat perched precariously on his gleaming bald head. Dave felt lost. This wasn't the welcome he'd expected. The thought crossed his mind that Mr. Gallagher might have exaggerated slightly about the warm reception awaiting him in the kitchen. Mr. Gallagher sent me to you, Dave began, searching for the right words. He said that you would give me a job. The man snorted unhappily. A job, you say? Well, well, Mr. Gallagher likes to make promises, leaving me to deal with the consequences. So, what can you do? The cook asked after a pause. Dave hesitated. I know how to do many things. Oh, really? Gregory smirked. We have quite the talent here, eh? More specifically, can you peel potatoes? Of course, Dave nodded, hoping this was the right answer. And cut meat? Gregory gestured towards a huge piece of beef on the cutting table. Yes, that too, Dave answered sheepishly. Very well, Gregory said with narrowed eyes. We'll test that now. Here's a knife. He tossed Dave a heavy cleaver that landed with a thud on the table. Cut this meat into 2-centimetre cubes and quickly. We don't have time. With that, he turned away to direct the other cooks. Dave picked up the knife and examined it. Though not a professional cook, he began working diligently, trying to ignore the stares of other employees. "Listen, chap," one of the cooks whispered, a young man with freckles. "Don't look so glum. Gregory is, how should I put it, complicated. He dislikes newcomers and has no patience for slow workers. If you want to stay, work fast and accurately." "Thanks," Dave nodded, focusing on the meat. "One more thing," the freckled cook added. "He's obsessive about following instructions. If he says 2-centimetre cubes, they better be exactly 2 centimetres, not a millimetre more or less, or else." "Or else what?" Dave asked, cutting faster. "You'll be out that door before you can say muffin." The freckled man winked and returned to his work. Dave tried his hardest. His hands moved constantly, but a few cubes still turned out slightly irregular. He was mentally preparing for dismissal when Gregory's voice interrupted his thoughts as he inspected the cutting. "Not bad for a beginner. You're doing fine, but you need to be more—" "I'll try my best," Dave mumbled, feeling like a scolded student. "Trying isn't enough. You must work," the chef declared. Taking the knife from Dave's hands, he swiftly cut the remaining meat into perfect cubes. "Watch and learn." After finishing his demonstration, Gregory said sharply, "Be here tomorrow at 6. Don't be late. For now, wash those pots. The dishwasher's out sick." Dave nodded. He realised the job wouldn't be easy, and the chef wouldn't spare him, but he was ready for any challenge. Dave desperately needed this job and was determined to earn the respect of both Gregory and the restaurant owner. The only thing he didn't know was the owner's plans for him. Dave began the dirty work, washing pots and pans until evening. His palms were red and softened from detergents. His back ached from constant bending, but he didn't complain. By the end of his shift, he could barely stand from exhaustion. The chef left an hour before closing, leaving his staff to clean up. However, most of the clean-up fell to Dave, as everyone seemed to dump their work on the newcomer. The doorman, Abraham, gave him a sympathetic look and an encouraging pat on the shoulder. Beyond the restaurant's huge panoramic windows, the evening city sparkled with millions of lights. Dave opened the door and breathed in the crisp autumn air with delight. He noticed a luxury car parked a few dozen meters away. The door opened, and out stepped a girl whose face seemed vaguely familiar. "Hello, Dave. How was your day? How's the new job?" "Hello," he answered, slightly confused. "Oh, Stephanie, sorry I didn't recognize you." "Well, no problem. My father asked me to take you to him, and we can have a ride through the city as well." Stephanie blushed slightly, feeling awkward. "A ride?" Dave raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Me? Why?" "I don't know about my dad's plan, but as for me, I just wanted to show you the evening city and chat a little," explained Stephanie, nodding at the luxury vehicle. "Thank you, but—" The guy scratched the back of his head. "I'm a little uncomfortable." But Stephanie always knew how to get her way, especially since her father's threat to cut off her money was very real. "Okay, let's go." Dave finally surrendered. "If it's not too much trouble." Stephanie smiled. Her plan had worked. Dave, despite his doubts, had agreed. "Well, now relax and enjoy the ride. I'll show you the most beautiful places." Stephanie put on some soft music. Dave nodded and settled back in his seat. There was silence in the salon, interrupted only by soft music and the calm voice of a girl describing the city's sights. She watched Dave with pleasure, noticing how his eyes lit up with joy as he took in the beauty of the night city. Deep down, she was pleased to give the poor young man such joy, but simultaneously felt awkward about her father's scheme. "Do you really like it?" Stephanie asked, stopping at a traffic light. "Yes," Dave replied. "Thank you so much for this ride. I'm overjoyed you invited me along." "You're welcome. Enjoy it." At that moment, Stephanie noticed in her rearview mirror a dark SUV that had been following them for about half an hour. Was this mere coincidence, or was she being followed? Had her father arranged surveillance? "Something's wrong," Dave observed cautiously. "You've gone pale." Stephanie shook her head. "No, it's nothing." As if confirming her words, the mysterious SUV disappeared into the nearest alley. An uneasy feeling lingered in her heart. The trip lasted about an hour, during which they chatted about various things: work, dreams, and life in general. To her surprise, Dave turned out to be quite an engaging conversationalist. Appearance could indeed be deceiving. A person might seem unremarkable at first glance, yet after exchanging just a few words, you find yourself captivated by their conversation. Meanwhile, Stephanie turned onto a quiet street lined with expensive mansions. Pulling up at a massive gate, she smiled. "Well, this is where me and my dad live." "Oh, it's like a castle," Dave began, but stopped short upon noticing Mr. Gallagher standing at the gate. "Here comes Daddy," Stephanie whispered, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Stephanie, Dave, come in, please," exclaimed Mr. Gallagher. "Why are you back so early? I hoped you would have a good time and—" He looked at Dave with narrowed eyes. "Get to know each other better." "What's going on? I don't understand," Dave whispered, looking confusedly between Stephanie and her father. "Dad, let's discuss this another time," she began, but Mr. Gallagher cut her off. "Dave, I offered you a job in my restaurant. You're doing excellent work. Gregory has already told me. Now it's time to discuss important matters. Here's the situation. Stephanie, my daughter, needs a reliable husband, and I have no doubt you'll make an excellent spouse for her." "What?" Dave was bewildered. "Mr. Gallagher, Don't jump to conclusions. I'm offering you my daughter's hand in marriage," Mr. Gallagher continued, ignoring the young man's confusion. But Dave protested. "I don't understand. Is this a joke?" "You don't need to understand anything. Stephanie," Mr. Gallagher turned to his daughter, "here is your fiancé." "Daddy, no," Stephanie cried. "I don't want to marry him. I don't love him." But something in her father's eyes made her fall silent and bite her tongue. A tense pause followed. Dave, glancing at Stephanie, saw in her eyes not only a plea, but something else. Though he couldn't identify that look, it stirred him to speak up. Whatever the consequences, he was a man and couldn't let this girl be treated this way. "Mr. Gallagher, I truly appreciate the offer, but I cannot marry your daughter." "What? What did you say?" the man exclaimed in rage. "I cannot marry a girl who doesn't love me," Dave answered calmly. "Stephanie is not a possession to be bought or sold." Stephanie couldn't hold back her tears, grateful for Dave's courage. Mr. Gallagher, hoping for the impact of his threatening, remained silent for a moment, then waved his hand dismissively. "Fine, do what you want. But you, Stephanie, should behave yourself and finally become adult. And you, Dave, keep working. Don't think this conversation will affect your employment." The young man nodded discreetly and, wishing everyone good night, walked away, refusing to take a cab. Stephanie entered the house, avoiding her stepmother's gaze. Though Bridget was merely 10 years her senior, and one might think there was nothing unusual about her father marrying a younger woman after her mother's death, the relationship between stepmother and stepdaughter had been strained from the beginning. "No adventures or wrecked cars today, I hope?" Bridget asked sarcastically. "I'm here, as you can see," Stephanie muttered, and entering her room, collapsed onto the couch. Her heart clenched with sudden pain. She imagined her mother's gentle hands, affectionate gaze and warm embrace. "Mummy," the girl whispered, as tears rolled down her cheeks. "How I wish you were here. Why can't you protect me from all this?" Sweet memories from the distant past flooded her mind. Evenings spent with her mother in this very room, her childhood. Her mother had always known how to comfort her daughter, tell her stories, braid her hair. "Stephanie," her mother's voice echoed like a gentle melody in her memory. "You are my most precious treasure. Be strong. Don't let anyone hurt you." "Strong," Stephanie whispered, communing mentally with her late mother. As a bitter smile touched her lips. "How can I be strong when my own father is putting me up for auction, ready to give me away to the first man he meets, just to be rid of me?" Stephanie got up and walked to the window, gazing at the glittering nighttime city. She pondered how everything had changed after her mother's death. A recent conversation with Bridget surfaced in her mind. "Stephanie," her stepmother had whispered with a scornful look, "it's time you realized that you're not only heir to this fortune. Don't try to act like a princess. You're just a silly girl who had money fall into her lap." "Why are you so concerned about my money?" the girl had retorted. The stepmother had only smirked and winked meaningfully. "I hate her," Stephanie whispered, clenching her fists as she emerged from her dark memories. "I hate this woman who destroyed our family and won't give me a moment's peace." She understood that her father loved Bridget. He often spoke of it, showing his young wife tenderness and care he never displayed towards Stephanie. Sliding down, Stephanie buried her face in the pillow. At that moment, she felt utterly lost, lonely, and unwanted. In truth, all her dramatic spending sprees had one purpose: to attract her father's attention, though lately he found it easier to buy her off than address real problems. A sudden knock at the door made Stephanie flinch, and she heard her father's voice outside. "Still awake? May I come in?" "Yes, of course." The door opened, and Mr. Gallagher entered, looking tired, concern etched on his face. "Stephanie, I want to apologize," he began, approaching her bed. "For what I said today. I was wrong, including about Dave. I am just afraid of your future." Stephanie remained silent, watching him incredulously. "I know you don't get along with Bridget," Mr. Gallagher continued, "but she means a lot to me. I want to be with her, and your different personalities, well, who's to blame for that?" "What about me, Dad?" Stephanie asked, her eyes full of pain. "Don't I matter to you? Don't you think of me at all?" "Of course I think of you," said Mr. Gallagher. "You're my daughter, but Bridget is my family too." Stephanie nodded and, wishing her father good night, turned to face the wall. The next morning, entering the restaurant's lobby, Dave gave Abraham a friendly nod and headed toward the kitchen. "Hello, Gregory." Dave greeted the chef meekly, trying to sound confident. "Ah, here's a would-be son-in-law, Dave himself." The chef drawled mockingly. "Get started. Those potato sacks won't unload themselves, and don't you dare slack off." Dave nodded and walked to his assigned spot. He was shocked that word of Mr. Gallagher's offer had spread so quickly to his workplace. As he passed the work tables, the young man felt the other cooks and assistants watching him. They whispered and snickered, while some, especially the younger waitresses, cast curious glances his way. Dave clearly felt improper, as if he were in an aquarium with predatory piranhas ready to strike at any moment. "An idiot and a subservient boy," David heard a whisper behind him. "Mr. Gallagher must have forced his daughter to marry him," another voice said. Despite Dave's attempts to ignore the whispers and taunts, each glance and caustic comment stung.
"Dave, is it true you're dating Stephanie?"
one of the cooks asked, approaching with unconcealed curiosity.
"They say she throws money around like water. What's the real story?"
Dave stammered, his cheeks flushing.
"Well, I barely know Stephanie. We've only met once,"
he muttered, looking away.
"Don't be modest, lucky boy,"
the cook said with an apparently friendly smile.
"She's loaded. You've hit the jackpot."
At lunch, Dave sought refuge outside, avoiding his kitchen colleagues, but even there he found no peace.
"Well, look who it is, the son-in-law,"
came a voice from behind. Dave turned to face the waiters, who watched him with mocking eyes.
"What do you want?"
he asked.
"Oh, nothing. Just imagining your golden future."
One stepped forward.
"Living with Stephanie is like winning the lottery."
"That's none of your business," Dave replied icily.
"Hey, we're only joking,"
the other waiter said, attempting to ease the tension.
"No offence meant."
"None taken," Dave replied and retreated to the back room. Such personal matters weren't up for discussion. What was there to discuss anyway? Everything had been decided. Stephanie had her life, he had his, regardless of Mr. Gallagher's plans. As lunch break ended, Dave immersed himself in work. The day promised to be challenging, primarily because the administrator was absent. Chef Gregory had temporarily assumed his duties, immediately removing his apron and signature cap before striding triumphantly into the dining room. The waitress's spirits sank. No tips today. The greedy chef would claim everything. Usually, tips went to those who earned them, but Gregory had different ideas. As evening approached, the restaurant filled with guests. The dining room hummed with conversation, clinking dishes and laughter. Gregory played his role as administrator, seating guests and smiling as if all were normal. Then an elderly woman arrived. She wore a threadbare coat, her hair dishevelled, clutching a worn purse. Approaching the counter, she asked breathlessly, "Excuse me, I would like to have a cup of tea and maybe a bun." Gregory regarded her with distaste.
"Listen, Granny, can't you see there's reservations only? Go somewhere more suitable for your place," he snapped.
The elderly woman bowed her head in embarrassment. Witnessing this, Dave paled. Moved by compassion, he approached the counter.
"Gregory, may I take an order for my guest?"
Dave asked quietly.
"What? Feeling sorry for the old woman? Perhaps you'd like to join her at the table. You expect me to serve her for free?"
The chef sneered.
"No need, I'll pay myself,"
Dave said evenly.
"Playing the generous benefactor, are you? Since when do you have money for charity?"
Gregory said mockingly.
1 week as potential son-in-law, and you're already getting cocky, relying on your father-in-law?
Dave looked away, embarrassed by the snickers behind him. After a moment's hesitation, he pulled out his money and paid for the elderly woman's order in front of everyone. Then he went to the kitchen and brought her tea and a scone himself, followed by a modest dinner that was included in the price he had paid.
"Thank you. You have a good heart,"
the woman whispered. Dave smiled and touched her hand.
"It's hopeless. You won't get anything good from this pensioner. You're probably counting on fat tips. Keep dreaming,"
Gregory remarked with undisguised irritation. Dave silently swallowed his resentment and went to the kitchen. There was much work ahead of him, which meant no time for idle chatter. But just as Dave finished unloading the supplier's truck, the waitress quietly called him over. "That old lady is asking for you. Deal with her quickly, okay? Gregory is about to explode with anger." Dave swallowed hard and hurried to the dining hall. The elderly stranger had finished her dinner and was patiently waiting for her protector's return. Approaching the table, Dave looked at her questioningly. The old woman smiled and spoke softly.
Thank you, boy. I really needed your help today. I've been looking for a good, kind person at this restaurant, and I believe I've found him."
"What do you mean?" he asked, surprised. "Don't worry, I'm perfectly sound of mind," the older woman replied, removing her wig and giving everyone present a stern look. "I am Helen Morales, head of the Quality Control Department in town. Today, I secretly visited your restaurant to see how you treat your guests. You were the only one who showed concern for an old woman. You're precisely the kind of person this place needs. I'm certain many of the staff will be ashamed of their behaviour later." Gregory, watching the scene unfold, sat frozen in his chair, petrified. He realised his days at the restaurant were numbered. Meanwhile, Mrs. Morales asked to see the restaurant owner. She spoke from a position of authority, making everyone visibly nervous. After all, she had the power to shut down the establishment immediately. "I didn't expect such treatment, Mr. Gallagher. I saw how your new employee stood up for me, while this bore behaved disgracefully," said Mrs. Morales when the owner arrived. Gregory, pale as chalk, tried to defend himself, but she wouldn't let him speak. "Today will be your last day in this restaurant. You're fired," Mr. Gallagher declared. "What? But I'm the chef," Gregory stammered. "No excuses. You behaved like a pig and I won't tolerate it," Mr. Gallagher said firmly. The disgraced chef could only walk out silently, head bowed. Everyone watched in shock. Then Mr. Gallagher turned to the woman and Dave. "Mrs. Morales, I apologise on behalf of myself and the entire staff. Dave, you showed humanity when others failed to do so." "Yes, these are the kind of people who should work in your establishment," said Mrs. Morales. Mr. Gallagher nodded silently, acknowledging his mistake. And Mrs. Morales left, the restaurant's atmosphere transformed completely. The employees exchanged uncertain glances, wondering what would happen next. Dave noticed their attitude toward him had shifted dramatically. They now treated him with respect. He looked at Mr. Gallagher, who suddenly grinned. "Well, failed son-in-law, you've become our restaurant's hero. Looks like you're climbing the career ladder, skipping several steps at once. Congratulations. Starting today, you'll be a trainee administrator. For now, as a substitute, and we'll see about the future." The staff responded with friendly applause, ready to celebrate a former outcast. Dave smiled awkwardly, still processing everything. He hadn't sought fame, he'd simply wanted to help someone in need. Meanwhile, Stephanie, sitting in her car, noticed a dark SUV following her. At first, she didn't pay much attention to it, but when the car began persistently keeping its distance, the girl felt alarmed. "Dad," Stephanie said, calling her father, "someone in a black SUV is following me." "What?" Mr. Gallagher asked anxiously. "What dark SUV? Stephanie, are you sure it's not a coincidence? Try not to attract attention. I'll try to find out what kind of car it is." "Okay," his daughter whispered, feeling her anxiety rise. Stephanie circled the city, but no call came from her father. Then suddenly she received a call from Bridget. "Honey, your father's been hospitalized," her stepmother said, cold calculation beneath her concerned tone. "He's having a stroke. He's in intensive care. The doctors are fighting for his life. He came back from the restaurant agitated, was upset and then clutched his heart and collapsed." Stephanie rushed to the hospital. Seeing her dad connected to machines, hot tears streamed down her cheeks. Bridget sat beside the bed, her face blank as marble. She seemed to have awaited this moment, finally getting what she wanted. A ringing silence filled the room, broken only by the faint beeping of machines. Bridget seized the moment and approached her stepdaughter. "Well," she began in a sickeningly sweet voice, "you see, your father hasn't been well lately. This could have happened any time."
"What do you mean?" Stephanie whispered, staring at her stepmother in disbelief.
"The doctor said it could be hereditary," Bridget explained. "You probably know your grandfather died young too."
"Don't you dare say that!" Stephanie snapped. "You just want to take over father's company, his money, everything he owns."
Bridget merely shrugged. "Isn't that natural? I'm not a stranger to him. I think Mr. Gallagher wouldn't mind. It's unfortunate he didn't prepare a will. With such a large inheritance, there will be disputes."
"Stop acting like he's already dead. He's going to recover," Stephanie declared, fighting back tears.
"We'll see," Bridget replied. "We'll see how you run a business when you can't even operate a cash register." With that, the stepmother left, leaving Stephanie alone with her thoughts. At that moment, the girl realized she would have to fight for herself and her future. She was no longer naive. Life had taught her a harsh lesson, and she was ready to fight to the end. Stephanie spent the night worrying about her father, her body trembling at every sound. Finally, good news arrived. The crisis had passed, but she couldn't relax yet. After hastily drinking strong coffee, Stephanie went to the restaurant. To her surprise, Bridget was already there. "Stephanie, dear," Bridget purred, settling into her father's office chair as if it were already hers. "It's time we put things in order there. Your father is a wonderful man, but his health, as we can see, leaves much to be desired. And in my opinion, it's better to sell the restaurant because it affects your father's health in a bad way." Stephanie's fists clenched. "My father created all of this, and I won't let you take it from him." "Don't be dramatic," Bridget smiled. "The law is unforgiving. You can't act without your father's signature, but I can. I have documents proving my contribution to this establishment." "You forged them," Stephanie accused, and Bridget smirked. "Calm down. I'm only protecting our future. You're too young and naive to understand such complex matters." Stephanie stormed out, slamming the door. She needed to act quickly, but who could she trust? Her gaze landed on Dave, standing by the door, as if sensing her distress. "Dave," she called softly, "I need your help." The young man, appointed manager just before Mr. Gallagher's stroke, seemed to have matured overnight. He carried himself with confidence, his eyes showing readiness to assist. "I'll help however I can," he said. "My stepmother is trying to take over the restaurant," the girl said, her voice breaking. "She's forging documents, and I don't know what to do next." "Calm down," Dave said, taking her hand gently. "We'll manage." Dave proved surprisingly resourceful and determined. He quickly assembled a team of local employees, those who remembered Mr. Gallagher's merits and appreciated honest work. The doorman, Abraham, who had become his faithful friend, stood by Stephanie and her father's side. "We must find all the documents proving the restaurant still belongs to Mr. Gallagher," Dave said, gathering everyone in the back rooms. "And we have to prove that Bridget is lying." "We should check the old accounting records," suggested Dave. "That's where all the receipts and supplier contracts are kept." "And," Stephanie added, "we need witnesses to confirm my father's contribution to the business, plus bank statements and testimony from the banker who issued the development loan." Over the following days, everyone worked together to search for documents, locate witnesses, and question former employees. Meanwhile, Bridget could only resort to bribery and intimidation to stop them. But they persisted,
fighting not just for themselves, but for Mr. Gallagher, who lay in a coma. "You're a liar and vile schemer, and you want to steal what isn't yours," Stephanie declared, bursting into the office. "You're just a little girl who doesn't understand how the world works," Bridget sneered. Dave, who came in after Stephanie, held a folder of documents. "Here's the evidence confirming Stephanie and her father's rightful ownership of this restaurant," he said, looking at Bridget with disdain. "We also have witnesses ready to testify that you personally forged the ownership documents." Bridget leapt from her chair. "That's all lies. Your documents are worthless." "Well, fine. Let police sort this out," Stephanie said, and horror spread across Bridget's face at the realization that she had lost. She turned to leave without another word, but at the doorway she encountered Abraham, wearing a mysterious smile. "Mr. Gallagher has regained consciousness," the doorkeeper informed. At that moment, Stephanie rushed from the office, filled with hope, feeling life's colours and meaning returning. The journey to the clinic felt endless. Fragments of recent days flashed through her mind. The arguments with her father, Dave's strange story and sudden appointment as manager, the suspicious SUV following her, and finally, her father's stroke. In the intensive care unit where Mr. Gallagher lay, silence reigned amid dimmed lights and the sterile smell of medicine and equipment. Stephanie approached her father's bed, barely containing her tears. "Daddy, can you hear me?" Mr. Gallagher's eyes slowly opened. To Stephanie's surprise, she noticed relief and something like joy in his eyes. "Stephanie," he whispered with a smile. "My girl." She leaned over the bed. "Daddy, honey, I was so scared." "It's okay. Thanks to the doctors," the man said in a weak but confident voice. "I found out who was following you, but didn't have time to warn you." Stephanie froze, intuitively feeling that her father was about to say something important. "They were my companions' men from the time of my youth," Mr. Gallagher continued, pausing between words. "His name is Paul Mitchell, and now he is the big shot in town." Stephanie turned pale. "And why did he need me?" Mr. Gallagher sighed for a moment and then said, "They were following not so much you as Dave. Paul is his father." There was silence in the room. Stephanie could not believe her ears. Dave, the son of a wealthy man? But then why was he pretending to be a vagrant? She whispered, unable to contain her surprise. Mr. Gallagher smiled weakly. "Dave made a bet with his father that he could find a job without his connections, and I unknowingly became part of their game. I'm sorry, Stephanie. I really didn't know that Dave wasn't who he claimed to be. We hadn't spoken to Paul for 10 years. We had our differences. And Bridget never liked him much." At that moment, Dave approached. He looked at Stephanie with tenderness and anxiety. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to deceive you, but I promised my father and couldn't lose." "So, you've been playing with me all this time?" she said, her voice filled with resentment and disappointment. "Believe me, I didn't mean to hurt you. I fell in love with you. It's true." Sensing the tension in the ward, Mr. Gallagher spoke up. "Stephanie, don't be so hard on Dave. He wanted to win your heart in his own way." "But why?" whispered Stephanie, still confused. "Why couldn't he just say who he was?" "Perhaps Dave needed to prove something to himself, that he was more than just a rich man's son."
Mr. Gallagher answered for him. Stephanie looked at Dave's confused face and saw sincere sympathy and tenderness in his eyes. "Dave," she began, trying to gather her thoughts, "I don't know what to think." Suddenly, he said, "Stephanie, marry me." An awkward silence filled the room. She glanced at her father, who watched with interest, his eyes showing not condemnation but encouragement. "Daddy," Stephanie began, holding back tears.
"Daughter," Mr. Gallagher said, "give Dave another chance. I'm sure he's a good man, and I believe in his feelings. Besides, I think Dave will be a worthy successor at the restaurant."
Stephanie looked at Dave again, seeing his eyes full of pleading and such sincere love that she couldn't resist. "I agree," she answered softly. Dave jumped up, embraced Stephanie, and kissed her tenderly. Mr. Gallagher smiled and tiredly closed his eyes.